Vito Colobo's buddy was back in town, so they'd made dinner plans at that old Sicilian place on Mulberry Street, the one with the red-checkered tablecloths and the owner who called me Little Mrs. Colobo and pinched my cheeks like I was his own granddaughter. I was doom-scrolling in bed at 9:30 p.m., wearing one of Vito's old t-shirts that hung off one shoulder, when I found this new dessert spot on some food blogger's page. The photos were obscene. A molten chocolate cake oozing warm fudge the second you cut into it, sitting next to a scoop of vanilla bean gelato. And, of course, it was right around the corner from where they were eating. I screenshotted the post and immediately sent it to him, without thinking twice. Vito, I want this. Right now. They close at 10. Grab it for me on your way out. Don't forget. Vito. Vito. Are you ignoring me? But Vito didn't text back. No typing bubbles. No read receipt. Nothing. That's when I knew something was wrong. Normally, even when he's in the middle of work, the kind involving hushed voices, locked briefcases, and the occasional soundproof room, he answers me within 5 minutes. Tops. Everyone in his organization knew the rule. The Don's phone was always on for his wife. Always. No exceptions. Unless he was dealing with something truly ugly. And if that were the case, his consigliera would have called me already. I bit my lip and hit the call button. Straight to voicemail. 3 times in a row. Now, I wasn't stupid enough to think he was cheating. The man couldn't sneeze without 3 of his guys reporting it back to me before he even reached for a tissue. But I was still annoyed. We just had a huge argument about adopting a stray cat I found in a parking lot, and I was still sensitive about it. He'd said no. I'd said I wasn't asking. He'd said that was exactly the problem. So, I threw on a leather jacket over my t-shirt, grabbed my keys, and decided to catch him red-handed. If he was going to ignore me, he could do it to my face. The restaurant was one of our regular spots. Vito brought me there on our 3rd date, back when we were still feeling each other out, still pretending we were just 2 people who happened to be married. The owner, an old Sicilian man named Sal, lit up the second he saw me walk through the door. Little Mrs. Colobo, he beamed, wiping his hands on his apron. The Don didn't say you were coming. He doesn't know, I said with a sweet smile. Which room? He pointed straight toward the private room at the end of the upstairs hall without hesitation. Everyone knew you didn't lie to the Don's wife. I headed upstairs. My boots were quiet against the old wood floor, but my heart definitely wasn't. It was pounding so hard I was sure they'd hear me coming. The door was cracked open. Warm yellow light spilled into the hallway, along with the smell of red wine, cigar smoke, and something roasting downstairs in the kitchen. Just as I reached for the handle, I heard a familiar voice. Luca. Vito's right-hand man. Broken nose. Terrifying glare. Weirdly soft heart. That's brutal, Vito. Give it time, and she'll be eating out of your hand. Little trick I picked up. Vito's laugh. Low. Easy. The kind he used when talking business, not the one he used at home with me. Can't blame you for putting up with that temper. The rest of us couldn't do it. Seriously, what are you, some kind of glutton for punishment? More laughter. Glasses clinking. At least 4 or 5 men in the room. My nails dug into my palms. I tried talking myself down the way my therapist taught me. Maybe they weren't talking about me. Maybe she was somebody else. Some woman involved in business. Someone difficult. Because really, what would Vito gain from all this? The most powerful Don in 5 boroughs could have any woman he wanted. Why would he waste 4 years tying me up in knots just to watch me fall apart? I almost convinced myself. Then the other shoe dropped. 3 more months until your agreement with a wife expires, right? Someone laughed. I can already picture her bawling her eyes out on the floor. You gonna film it? Heh. A pause. The clink of ice against glass. Keep it quiet, yeah? Otherwise, I wasted my time for nothing. For years. For years of patience, gentleness. Anything you want, babe. Also, he could watch me break. He wanted me dependent. Desperate. So emotionally tangled up in him that when the clock ran out, I'd have nowhere else to go. I turned around and walked back downstairs. 1 foot in front of the other. My reflection in the hallway mirror looked pale and hollow, like a ghost wearing my face. I didn't cry until I got to the car. I wasn't always like this, all fire and attitude, demanding cake at 9:30 p.m. and sulking when I didn't get it. I used to be sweet, polite, perfect. My father trained me like a show pony from the moment I could hold a fork. I was supposed to become the perfect prize in an arranged marriage that benefited the family business. Pretty, obedient, never talked back. Rich families from Boston to D.C. practically lined up for me. They'd visit our Connecticut estate for tea, and I'd sit there with perfect posture, smiling politely while sipping Earl Grey from bone china, like I'd been born holding silver spoons in both hands. By 6, I knew the difference between a salad fork and a dinner fork. At 12, I could discuss wine pairings. At 16, I spoke 3 languages and played Chopin nocturnes from memory. But I never once saw genuine interest in their eyes. Not once. They didn't want a person. They wanted a wife who wouldn't make waves. A business asset in a pretty dress. A broodmare with good cheekbones, and a flawless family tree. My one real act of rebellion was skipping one of my father's galas and hiding on the rooftop terrace, heels kicked off, vintage gown ruined against the gravel. The city stretched beneath me, lights blinking like Morse code. And I remember thinking, somewhere down there, someone is living their own life. Why can't that be me? That's where I met Vito Colobo. He came up through the service stairs with whiskey in one hand and a cigarette in the other, looking like he owned the whole city. Which honestly, he basically did. He was younger than me by a year or 2, maybe 24 at the time, but he had the eyes of someone who'd seen things I couldn't imagine. Sharp cheekbones. Dark hair falling over his forehead. A mouth that looked like it knew how to smile, but rarely bothered. Rough night, he asked, leaning against the railing. You have no idea. Try me. I don't know why I told him everything. Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was the wind. Or maybe it was the way he looked at me, like I was interesting instead of useful. So, he said eventually, a smirk tugging at his lips. Want to get married, Miss Ross? Name your price. Anything you want. Anything? I'd never heard that word spoken like that before. Not like it actually existed in the real world. He laughed softly. Yeah, anything. I'm a man of my word. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe I was just exhausted from 23 years of being good. Whatever it was, I heard myself say, how about a trial run? For years. If it doesn't work, we walk away. No hard feelings. I sign papers, you sign papers, and we go back to our separate corners. I fully expected him to laugh in my face. Instead, he stared at me for a long moment while the city hummed below us. A siren echoed somewhere in the distance. Then he smiled. Not the cool, untouchable Dawn smile. Something softer. You've got a deal, Miss Ross. He held out his hand. I shook it. I didn't realize then that I'd just made a deal with the devil. Or that the devil was already hopelessly in love with me. My father had done his job too well. I was the perfect bride. Pretty, quiet, easy to manage. So, after the wedding, that's exactly what I tried to be. Don't ask questions. Don't bother him. Don't make trouble. We lived in this enormous house in the hills, stone walls, iron gates, old-world elegance, rose gardens in summer, and a kitchen so pristine I was afraid to cook in it. At night, I wandered the halls barefoot like a ghost, wondering if this was really the life my mother wanted for me. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got lost in our own gated community. I wandered around in the October cold for over an hour because I didn't want to call him. He was busy. He had meetings. His wife getting lost was ridiculous. I twisted my ankle near one of those decorative fountains and ended up sitting on the curb, freezing, staring at my glowing phone screen while trying not to cry. I typed and deleted message after message. Hi, sorry to bother you during work, but I'm completely lost. Could you send me the address again? I know that's pathetic. Sorry. Too needy. Never mind. I'll figure it out. Too cold. Come find me. Too familiar. We weren't there yet. I was still overthinking it when a warm hand, long fingers, silver ring on the middle finger, plucked the phone straight out of my hands. I looked up. Vito stood there in a dark coat, hair messy from the wind, staring down at me. He looked at my screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Without saying a word, he deleted my entire paragraph and typed 3 words. Come get me. Then he grabbed my thumb, literally grabbed my thumb like I was a toddler, and pressed it against the send button. My heart nearly exploded. The man who started all this just crouched down, scooped me into his arms like I weighed nothing, and said, let's go home. You're freezing. Your meeting can wait. My wife can't. He always knew who I really was underneath all the polish and perfect posture and fear of being inconvenient. And he was the one who told me to stop holding myself back. To be demanding. To be difficult. To be me. You're such a brat, he told me once, laughing after I threw a pillow at his head for eating the last spoonful of gelato. You made me this way. Damn right I did, he said. Best decision I ever made. What time is it? Damn, my phone's dead. Anyone got a charger? Vito's voice snapped me back to the present. I was still pressed against the hallway wall, my heart jackhammering, my mind racing through everything I'd just heard. A beat of silence came from inside the room. Then, hell, the wife texted. I saw the notification before it died. Gotta call her back. My phone buzzed in my hand. I let it ring, and ring, and ring. Then the messages started flooding in one after another, like he was panicking. Babe, sorry, phone just came back to life. Swear to God. Why'd you hang up? You don't love me anymore? Is that it? You finally realized I'm annoying? Sad puppy face with the big eyes. JPG. Getting you that cake right now. Walking out the door this second. Just please talk to me? I'll beg. I'm not above begging. My brain was short-circuiting. The man sending those texts, the one typing in all caps, using emojis, threatening to beg, was not the same man who'd been holding court in that private room 5 minutes ago. That man had been cool, collected, in control. This man sounded like a kid who'd lost his mom in a supermarket. Finally, I typed back, trying to sound normal. Don't worry about the cake. I was about to crash anyway. Have fun with your friends. Inside the room, chaos erupted. Man, you guys are a bad influence. The wife's pissed. She doesn't even want the cake. I'm out. Rain check. Someone else can pay for the wine. Chairs scraped across the floor. Someone yelled. Dawn, you said you were staying until midnight. Someone else burst out laughing. I ducked into the bathroom at the end of the hall, locked myself inside a stall, and pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. By the time Vito stormed downstairs, I was already sneaking out through the kitchen. Sal gave me a strange look, but didn't say anything. He just handed me a paper bag with 2 cannoli inside and patted my shoulder. And somehow, I still don't know how, maybe I took a shortcut I didn't realize I knew, I made it home first. I stripped off my jacket, brushed my teeth, and buried myself under the covers just before the bedroom door creaked open 10 minutes later. Vito padded over quietly. The mattress dipped. Then his arms wrapped around me from behind, pulling me against his chest, warm and solid. Babe. His voice was soft, tentative. I know you're awake. I didn't move. I brought the cake anyway. It's on the counter with a fork. Don't be mad, okay? Please? I wasn't ghosting you on purpose. This phone's a dinosaur. It died without warning. I didn't even realize until I went to check the time. This was not the same man who'd said keep it quiet, yeah? In that smooth, calculated voice. I was too exhausted to keep pretending. The bratty response slipped out automatically. You're telling me you can't afford a new phone? Get your assistant on it already. Or, one of your guys. There are like 40 people working for you. A pause. Then genuinely wounded. But you bought me this one. What? You bought me this phone. Our first anniversary. He sounded offended. It has sentimental value. Vito, it's a phone. You bought it, so I don't want to replace it unless you buy the new one too. He nuzzled into my hair. That's the rule. You started it. You have to finish it. Then tell me that. Use your words. I thought you'd notice. Even in the dark, I could practically hear the puppy eyes. I thought you'd see me struggling with my ancient phone and feel bad enough to buy me a new one. That's how marriage works, right? You're supposed to read my mind. Damn it. By our second anniversary, I'd stopped being the perfect little housewife who anticipated his every need before he even voiced it. These days, if I remembered to buy him a pen, literally a cheap pen they hand out for free with designer bags, he'd lose his mind over it. He carried it to every single meeting. Showed it off to anyone willing to listen. It's from my wife. Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, I know I'm lucky. Don't touch it. I sighed, the fight draining out of me. Fine. I'll buy you a new one tomorrow. But you're driving. Knew you were the best. Knew it. He perked right up. Here, babe. Say ah. This is the best chocolate cake in the city. I fought a guy for it. Not really. But I would've. He scooped up a forkful of molten chocolate cake and held it to my lips. In the dim light spilling through the curtains, his eyes looked soft, adoring, almost vulnerable. I stared at him, at those warm brown eyes, that stupid hopeful smile, the streak of flour on his collar from God knows where, and wondered, can anyone really be this good at pretending? On the anniversary of my mother's death, Vito drove me to the cemetery. The sky hung low and gray, one of those November days that couldn't decide whether it wanted to rain or snow. Vito wore a black overcoat and carried the flowers, white daisies, my mother's favorite, because he knew I couldn't look at them without crying. He didn't say much during the drive. One hand rested on the wheel. The other stayed on my knee, his thumb tracing slow circles over the fabric of my jeans. Some concerto played softly through the speakers while the city blurred past the windows in shades of gray and brown. My mother's grave sat at the top of a small hill beneath an old oak tree still clinging to a few stubborn brown leaves. I knelt on the cold ground and arranged the daisies inside the little stone vase, my fingers numb even through my gloves. Hey, Mom, I whispered. It's me again. I brought Vito. He stood behind me with one hand resting on my shoulder. Then he nodded toward the headstone, serious and respectful, the same way he nodded at men before discussing business. Mrs. Ross, he said quietly. I'll take care of her. You have my word. Tears stung behind my eyes, and I swallowed them back. Because if those words were true, if he really meant them, then why did I feel like I was standing on a trapdoor? Afterward, we went back to my father's house for dinner. The house I grew up in. The house where my mother died. My mother had wanted me to be wild and free. She was the one who snuck me out of piano lessons for ice cream. The one who let me run barefoot through puddles in the driveway. The one who laughed when I came home covered in mud. The one who whispered, "Don't tell your father," like we were co-conspirators. You be you, Elena, she used to say, tucking my hair behind my ear. Don't ever let anyone change you. Not even me. Especially not me. But then she died. And after she was gone, my world shrank. The piano stayed, but the joy disappeared. The easel stayed, but all the colors turned gray. Tutors filled my days, language instructors, etiquette coaches, a woman who came twice a week just to teach me how to walk in heels and sit without wrinkling my skirt. Living dolls don't have opinions. Living dolls don't inconvenience people. I learned later that my father didn't really care about me. He cared about profit, and I was his ticket into the big leagues, a beautiful, well-bred daughter who could marry rich and secure his business deals for another generation. So, whenever Vito visited, my father played the perfect host. All smiles. How are you, son? Let me pour you a drink. Elena, isn't she lovely? Elena, honey, go help your mother in the kitchen. Make something Vito likes. Fine. I started to stand. Vito's hand landed on my shoulder and gently pushed me back into my chair. I've got it, he said easily, though his grip stayed firm. Elena woke up early. She's tired. Let her rest. Nonsense. My father smiled, but it never reached his eyes. Your guest. And with everything you've got going on at the office, his gaze shifted toward me, sharp as a blade. Elena. Vito squeezed my hand once. I know my own taste better than anyone, he replied calmly. Trust me. Then he disappeared into the kitchen. The second the door swung shut, my father's expression turned icy. The mask dropped. I'd seen it happen 1,000 times before. Elena Ross. His voice came out low and venomous. You've really let yourself go, haven't you? First you have him serving you at the table like a waiter. Now you're making him cook while you sit there doing nothing. He offered. He offered because you've trained him to think you're useless. My father leaned closer. And you know what? He's not wrong. My jaw clenched. Let me tell you something, and listen carefully. He leaned in close enough for me to smell whiskey on his breath. No man likes a woman like you. Demanding. Lazy. Entitled. The only reason Vito looked twice at you is because I raised you properly. I invested in you. I made you valuable. Keep this up and he'll throw you away. His smile turned mocking. And then what? He spread his hands dramatically. Who's going to want you after the Colobo family spits you back out? A divorced woman with no family and a reputation for being difficult. If your divorce costs me money, if it costs me even one deal, don't bother coming back here. You won't be welcome. There it was. The final puzzle piece slid into place with a sickening click. Vito didn't want the real me. He wanted the old version of me. Quiet, agreeable, grateful. And he'd figured out the perfect way to get her back. Build me up. Spoil me. Let me get comfortable becoming this demanding, impossible version of myself. Then yank the rug out from under me. Make sure I had nowhere else to go. Make sure I understood, deep down, that nobody else would ever want me. Because who would want a spoiled, demanding woman with no family and a father who'd locked her out? Nowhere to run. No one to catch me. I understand, I said quietly. My voice came out so calm it scared me. Dinner was served an hour later. Most of it was stuff I liked. Osso buco, risotto Milanese, a salad of bitter greens with shaved parmesan. Vito had clearly had a word with the cook. I couldn't taste a damn thing. Vito ladled out soup, a creamy tomato bisque, my favorite, and slid the bowl toward me with a little smile. Under my father's icy glare, I pushed it back. You have it. I'll get my own. His spoon paused halfway to his mouth. I saw the microflicker in Vito's brow, the tiniest crease between his eyes, the almost invisible tightening of his jaw. Then I reached for the ladle myself, my hand shaking just slightly. Hot liquid sloshed over the rim of the bowl, burned the back of my hand. Ow, shit. Elena. Vito was out of his chair and across the room before I could blink. He grabbed my wrist, pulled me out of my chair, and dragged me to the kitchen sink. Cold water blasted over my reddening skin. His jaw was tight. That furrow between his brows had deepened into a canyon. It was the same look he'd given me a week ago when I tried to pick up that mangy stray from the parking lot. The cat was a scrawny little thing. Orange tabby, maybe 6 months old, all ribs and bad attitude. One eye crusted shut, the other glaring at me like I owed it money. I'd found it behind a dumpster outside the ski shop, shivering in the October rain. I couldn't just leave it there. I tried to grab it by the scruff like I'd seen people do on YouTube. It clawed the hell out of me. 3 long scratches down my forearm, welling with blood. When Vito pulled up in the Maserati, the cat was still hissing up a storm in my jacket, and I was bleeding on my favorite sweater. I want to keep it. I said it like a challenge. He looked at the cat, looked at my arm, looked back at the cat. No. Vito. It's feral, Elena. Look at it. It's not a pet, it's a wild animal. I can rehab it. I've watched videos. It'll die if we don't. You're bleeding. He'd never used that tone with me before. Flat. Final. The Don's voice, not my husband's. I'll find it a home. A good one. A vet, shots, the whole 9 yards. But you're not keeping it. We're going to the emergency room. Now. I'd sulked for a full day after that. Turned my back on him in bed. Skipped our planned ski trip, and made him go alone. He'd called me 12 times. I'd answered twice. He'd caved first, of course. He always caved first. Bought me the $1,000 perfume I'd been whining about, and left it on my pillow with a note that said, "I'm sorry. You're still not keeping the cat." I'd thought he was mad about the scratches. About the inconvenience. About having to spend his Saturday afternoon in a waiting room because his wife couldn't keep her hands off stray animals. But now, standing in my father's kitchen with cold water running over my hand, looking back, he wasn't mad I got hurt. He was mad I was being dramatic, needy, high maintenance. Everything my father had just said out loud. I pulled my hand away from the faucet, turned to face him, but I couldn't meet his eyes. I looked at the floor instead, at the little tiles, at the way the grout had yellowed over the years. "Sorry," I whispered. I didn't mean to be a problem. The water kept running. The only sound in the kitchen was the rush of the faucet and the distant clink of dishes from the dining room. Vito went completely still. His hand was still around my wrist. I felt his thumb move, just once, tracing the edge of the burn. Then he shut off the water, reached into his pocket and pulled out a small tube of burn care, the good stuff, the prescription kind. "You carry that with you?" I asked, stupidly. "You burned yourself on the oven last month." "I've been carrying it since then." He squeezed a little onto his finger and started spreading it over my skin. Slow, gentle, careful, like I was made of something precious. Finally, after what felt like forever, he spoke. "It's fine. Next time, let me handle it." His voice was soft, but it wasn't warm. The burn wasn't even that bad. Barely pink by the time we got home. Could have been a sunburn. But Vito still took a half day off to babysit me. Told his underbosses he was unavailable. Turned his phone off. Made a pot of coffee and set up his laptop on the kitchen island like he was planning to stay. I knew he had work. Real work. The kind of work that didn't pause for minor kitchen accidents. But he didn't complain. Didn't mention it. Just poured me a cup of tea and went back to his spreadsheets, or whatever he was pretending to look at while he watched me from across the room. He'd changed out of his funeral suit into something softer. A black cashmere sweater, thin enough that I could see the shape of his shoulders underneath. Sleeves pushed up past his elbows, showing those forearms, corded, dusted with dark hair, leading down to those hands I knew too well. The kind of hands that could break a man's neck or trace my spine, depending on his mood. The afternoon light from the window caught the side of his face. That profile. Sharp enough to cut glass. High cheekbones, a nose that had been broken once and healed slightly crooked, a jaw that looked like it had been carved by someone who really cared about symmetry. His dark hair fell over his forehead, and every few minutes he'd push it back with an absent-minded hand. I curled up on the couch with my tea, and tried not to stare. I failed. He caught me looking once. His lips twitched. "See something you like? Don't flatter yourself. Too late." "I'm already very flattered." He went back to his screen, but the corner of his mouth stayed curled. I flipped through my phone. Instagram. Twitter. A cooking blog I didn't care about. Nothing held my attention. My eyes kept drifting back to him, to the way the light moved across his shoulders when he typed, to the little furrow between his brows when he was concentrating. This was the man who'd said, "Keep it quiet, yeah?" in a room full of his friends. The man who described me like a project. A long-term investment. But this was also the man who carried burn cream in his pocket because I'd hurt myself 6 weeks ago. Who'd carried my cat, his cat, the one he said he didn't want, wrapped in his $5,000 coat. Who'd driven 40 minutes in the rain to bring me sushi when I was craving it, even though I hadn't asked. Which one was real? His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Twice. I glanced at it without thinking. The screen lit up. A name I didn't recognize. A message preview I couldn't read from this angle. Then Vito was moving, fast, too fast, crossing the room in 3 long strides and scooping the phone off the table before I could blink. He held it behind his back like a kid hiding a bad report card. His smile was too bright. "Work stuff. You know how it is. Big project. Okay." But when I got up to refill my tea and wandered past the island, his phone was face down on the counter. Screen dark. He hadn't looked at whatever came through. "Doesn't your hand hurt?" he asked a little too quickly. "You should go lie down. I'll wake you when dinner's ready. I'll make that pasta you like. The one with the lemon." "No, I'm fine. I'll keep you company." His thumb pressed white against the edge of his phone. The afternoon stretched out. Quiet. Uncomfortable. A different kind of quiet than the one we usually shared. Not companionable silence, but the kind that comes before a fight. Then, out of nowhere, he pushed his laptop aside. His hands found my hips. He lifted me onto the island. The marble was cold through my jeans and stuck between my legs, boxing me in. "Maybe," he said, his voice dropping low, "we could find something else to do." His lips found mine. Soft at first. Then harder. His tongue swept across my lower lip, asking, and when I didn't say no, he'd deepen the kiss. His hand came up to cradle the back of my head, fingers threading through my hair. Don't you need to check that message? I asked against his mouth. Not more than I need you. He kissed me again. His free hand slid up my thigh, thumb tracing the inseam of my jeans. I could feel the heat of him through the denim, through the thin cotton of my underwear, through every barrier I'd tried to put up between us. And that's when I knew, for sure, he was hiding something. Something he'd rather distract me from than explain. Something he didn't want me to see. My stomach turned over. Cold, not warm. I grabbed his wrist, gently but firmly. Actually, I said, I'm tired. I think I will go lie down. He pulled back. His eyes searched my face. The wanting was still there, dark and heavy, but underneath it, something else was creeping in. Confusion. And underneath that, fear. Okay. His voice was rough. Okay, go rest. I'll make dinner. He let me go. I walked out of the kitchen without looking back. The next morning, I went out and bought him the newest phone on the market. Top of the line. All the bells and whistles. The sales guy at the Apple store tried to upsell me on a case and a screen protector and an extended warranty, and I just handed him my black card and said, put it all on there. I had a message engraved on the back. To my husband, with love. I knew it was stupid. I knew I was being petty, but I wanted him to look at that phone every day and remember who gave it to him. I wanted him to feel guilty every time he typed out a message that wasn't for me. I drove to the family compound to drop it off in person. The compound was in New Jersey, about 40 minutes from the city, behind gates that would have made Fort Knox jealous. Stone walls. Iron scrollwork. A long driveway lined with sycamore trees that were dropping their leaves all over the pavement. The main house was old. Not fancy old like my father's place, but old, like it had been in the family for generations, like the walls had stories they weren't telling. The staff knew me. They always knew me. I was Mrs. Colobo, and I got the same respectful nods and murmured greetings as Vito himself. He was still in a meeting when I arrived. The conference room doors were closed, with two of his guys standing outside. They exchanged a glance when they saw me. One of them spoke quietly into his sleeve. I decided to kill time in the ladies' room down the hall. Big mistake. The bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures, the kind of place you could host a cocktail party in if you didn't care about the toilets. I was fixing my lipstick in the mirror when two of the administrative assistants came in, chattering without looking. Weird. Usually when she shows up, Vito clears his whole schedule. Today, he just left her waiting. For years in. Maybe he's finally getting bored. You think. Why not? You've seen how she talks to him. Bosses him around like he's the help. Eventually, a man's gonna snap. A pause. The sound of a compact snapping shut. I heard from Luca's assistant that he's been on the phone with some woman a lot lately. Late nights. Private calls. For real. Swear to God. Donna, in accounting, saw the phone records. Same number. Over and over. My hand froze on the lipstick tube. I waited until their voices faded down the hallway. Then I walked out of the stall, washed my hands slowly, and looked at myself in the mirror. She looked the same as she always did. Elena Colobo. 30 years old. Flawless makeup. Expensive clothes. The wife of a Don. But her eyes were different. There was something cold in them now. Something that hadn't been there yesterday. I dried my hands, threw the paper towel in the trash, walked out. Vito was coming out of the conference room, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up. A group of men in dark suits filed out behind him, all of them giving me a wide berth. Babe. His face lit up when he saw me, the way it always did, like I was the best part of his day. You should have told me you were coming. I would have wrapped up earlier. Two of the women from the bathroom froze behind him. They saw me see them. They went pale, then pink, then scurried off down the hall with their heads down. I was in the neighborhood. I handed him the bag. Here. He opened it. His whole face changed, softened, brightened, like a kid on Christmas morning. You got it for me? The new one? Babe. Thank you. He kissed me on the mouth in front of all his men. They looked away. He dragged me back to his office, already tearing open the box, already powering up the screen. Look at this thing. It's beautiful. It's so fast. He started taking pictures of the box, not even the phone yet, and typing furiously. Probably already spamming it to his group chat. Probably already gloating. A knock at the door. One of his guys wheeled in a big L-brand box on a dolly. Boss. This just came. Same day delivery. Vito's smile flatlined. That's not mine. Wrong address. Send it back. Want me to return to sender? No, just put it in storage. I'll call them. I'll figure it out. The guy gave him a strange look but obeyed. As soon as the door clicked shut. Probably my mom. She's always sending stuff here by mistake. You know how she is. His phone rang. He paled. Rejected the call. It rang again immediately. He couldn't dodge twice. He answered and scurried to the window, turning his back to me, murmuring uh-huh and okay in this clipped, uncomfortable voice. But I heard it. A woman's voice on the other end. Soft. Familiar. Like she'd called before. I thought about the bathroom gossip. The phone records. The same number, over and over. So, I said when he hung up, who was that? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Just a business associate. A consultant. On a new project. There's this thing tonight, a dinner thing, I really should go. Luke will be there. I can prove it. It won't be late. But if you want me to stay, I'll stay. I'll cancel. Right now. He's a terrible liar. But my father always said a good wife knows when to play dumb. So I smiled. The smile I'd been trained to smile since I was 6 years old. The one that didn't reach my eyes. Go. I have plans, anyway. I'll see you later. He came home late, but not too late. 1 in the morning, maybe. He was wearing different clothes. Luca yacked all over me at dinner, he said, already halfway to the bathroom. All over my jacket, my shirt, my shoes. It was disgusting. Borrowed his spare and tossed mine in the nearest dumpster. I'm gonna hit the shower. Don't come in. I smell like barf. The The bathroom door locked behind him. I sat up in bed, turned on the lamp. Something was off. The shower ran for 10 minutes. 15. When the door finally opened, steam billowed out into the bedroom, carrying the scent of his cedar soap. He came out wearing full pajamas, buttoned to the top, pants and everything. That was weird. Vito sleeps in his boxers. Always has. He says pajamas make him feel like he's being smothered by a grandmother. Even in winter. Even when the heat was broken that one time, and I woke up to find him shivering, he refused to wear anything more than the bare minimum. Something about restriction and freedom of movement. Something was under those pajamas. He climbed into bed, turned off his lamp, and lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. Not touching me. I let the silence stretch. Then I swung a leg over his hips, straddling him. The sheets were cool against my bare thighs. His torso was warm beneath me, even through the flannel. His hands came up to my hips automatically, reflex, but they didn't pull me closer. They just rested there. I started working open the buttons of his pajama shirt. Babe. His voice was tight. I'm beat. It was a long night. I'll do the work. I leaned down, lips brushing his ear. Felt the shiver that went through him. His hands tightened on my hips, but he didn't stop me. I got 3 buttons undone. His chest was bare underneath. Tan skin, dark hair trailing down his sternum, the faint silver line of an old scar near his ribs. And scratches. 4 of them. Long, parallel, angry red lines running from his collarbone down toward his nipple. Fresh enough that the edges were still raised. My heart stopped. He flipped us before I could react. Wrapped me up in the duvet like a burrito, pinning my arms to my sides. Seriously, babe. His voice was strained. I'm exhausted. When this project wraps, when things calm down, I swear, I'll make it up to you. On my knees. However you want. Just not tonight. He kissed my forehead, my nose, my lips, a brush, nothing more. Good night, Elena. He turned off the lamp and rolled over. I stared at the ceiling until the sky started to lighten. I used to think I'd make a good wife. The kind my father wanted. Dignified. Practical. All about the bottom line. The kind who hosted dinner parties and remembered everyone's names and never, ever embarrassed her husband in public. I'd sit at our table, spine straight, smile fixed, nodding at the right moments during business dinners. I'd remember the names of his associates' wives, their children's ages, their preferred wine. I'd laugh at jokes that weren't funny and nod along to stories I'd heard a dozen times before. I was a painting on a wall. Pleasant to look at, easy to ignore, impossible to read. That was the deal. That was what I'd been trained for since I could walk. My mother had tried to give me a different path, but she died before she could finish the job. So I'd become what my father needed me to be, a pretty, profitable daughter. But I'd finally realized the truth standing in that cold cemetery, my mother's name carved into stone beside wilted white daisies, Vito's arms steady around my shoulders. The truth hit me like a freight train in the dark. Not with Vito. Not ever. I couldn't be that woman with him. I'd tried. I'd failed. Because here's the thing about love. You can't play dumb when you're in it. Love cracks you open. Peels back every layer of polish and performance until there's nothing left but raw nerve and want. You can't serve wine and smile through your feelings when the person across the table knows the sound of your real laugh, knows the exact pressure you like when he holds your hand, knows that you cry at dog commercials, and I can't sleep without the fan on. And once you're that exposed, you can't pretend not to see what's right in front of you. You can't fake your way through the cracks. And I loved him. God help me. I loved him with every stupid, reckless, hopeless fiber of my being. I loved him from that night on the rooftop, from the moment he said anything like he meant it, like the word itself was a promise he intended to keep. I loved him through every stupid argument about cats and cakes, and whether he should answer his phone at dinner. I loved him when he came home at 2 a.m. smelling like gunpowder and expensive cologne, and I loved him when he crawled into bed and wrapped himself around me like I was the only solid thing in a world that wanted to swallow him whole. I loved him on the mornings he made me coffee and brought it to me in bed, and I loved him on the nights he came home silent and closed off and held me so tight I couldn't breathe. But loving him was also why it hurt so much. Because if he'd planned all of this, if the sweetness, the patience, the way he looked at me like I'd hung the moon, if all of that was just a long game to keep me trapped, just another strategy from a man who'd built his life on strategy, then I wasn't his wife. I was his project, his investment, his carefully collected trophy. I was the cat he was training to be tame. The thought made me want to throw up. So I stopped. I stopped blowing up his phone. Stopped demanding his attention. Stopped every tantrum before it could form. Biting down on the words until my jaw ached and my tongue bled. I stopped asking where he was going, who he was seeing, why he came home smelling like someone else's perfume. When he texted, I waited an hour to reply. "'Kay," or "Fine," or just a thumbs up emoji. Nothing that required a response. Nothing that invited conversation. When he asked what I wanted for dinner, I said, "Whatever you want." When he asked if I was okay, I said, "I'm fine." When he sent me a voice message, that low, warm voice saying, "Miss you, babe, can't wait to see you," I let it sit unopened until the notification faded from my screen, until whatever was in that message was just data, just sound waves, just another thing I was choosing not to feel. I felt him panicking from across the city. His messages went from every hour to every half hour to every 15 minutes. He started double texting, triple texting, voice notes where his voice cracked on the word please, where I could hear the panic bleeding through. He called me once, and I picked up on the 4th ring. Hey. Hey. A pause. I could hear him breathing. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Don't say nothing. I know that voice. I know you. You're doing that thing. What thing? The thing where you fold inward, where you go quiet, where you pretend everything's fine when it's not. You only do that when something's really wrong. I'm fine, Vito. You're not fine. You called me Vito. You never call me Vito unless you're pissed or you're scared. Which is it? I hung up. My thumb stayed on the screen for a long time afterward, because I knew what he was waiting to hear. The 3 words I'd said every night for 4 years, easy as breathing, automatic as a reflex. But I couldn't say them anymore. If I said them, I'd lose. And I'd already lost enough. If I was going to walk away, I was going to do it on my own terms. Clean break. No begging. No crying. No scenes. The next morning I met with a lawyer. A woman named Vittoria Moretti, old enough to be my grandmother, sharp enough to cut herself on her own cheekbones. Her office was on the top floor of a high-rise in Midtown, floor-to-ceiling windows that made the whole city look small and manageable, like a model train set someone had left out. She read my prenup, page by page, line by line, pushed her glasses up her nose, hummed once. This agreement, she said, has been modified, without your knowledge. I went cold. What do you mean, modified? The original term was 4 years, with an option to renew at the mutual consent of both parties. But this version, page 4, paragraph 3, has been replaced. The current term is 50 years from the date of the wedding. 50 years. My fingers dug into the armrest of her leather chair. I could feel my nails leaving crescent moon impressions in the leather. 50 years. Until I was 73 years old. Until I was old and gray and too tired to fight anymore. Until I'd forgotten what it felt like to be free. Who changed it? The amendment was made approximately 3 months after wedding. The signature on file belongs to, she turned the document toward me, Vito Colobo himself. I stared at his signature. That sharp, slanted handwriting I'd seen 1,000 times. On our marriage certificate, on birthday cards, on the first check he'd ever written me when he'd set up my allowance. There was no mistaking it. No forgery. He'd signed his name like he was proud of it. He'd changed the deal. From the very beginning, he'd never planned to let me go. The 4-year trial period was a lie, an illusion, a hook to get me in the door. But that night in the restaurant, crying her eyes out, little trick, just you wait. What was that if not his real strategy? If he'd already changed the papers behind my back, why bother with a performance for his friends? Unless that was also part of the act. Unless everything was part of the act. Unless there was no real Vito. Just an endless series of masks, one on top of the other, and underneath them all, nothing but strategy and control. I gathered the papers, stuffed them back in my bag, paid Moretti in cash $500 bills from the emergency fund I'd been building for years, just in case. I walked out into the cold autumn air and stood on the sidewalk for a long time, watching taxis crawl past, watching the city churn on without me, watching the sky go gray and then darker gray as the afternoon bled into evening. If I was an investment, I was going to be the worst one he ever made. Vito noticed the change almost immediately. He wasn't stupid. The first time I turned down a piece of jewelry, some ridiculous diamond necklace he'd had delivered to the house, wrapped in a velvet box the size of my head, he got this look on his face like I'd just slapped him. You don't like it? It's beautiful. I just don't need it. I didn't ask if you needed it. I asked if you liked it. I liked it fine. Put it in the safe with the others. The second time, he brought home a bracelet from Cartier. Just because, he said, sliding the blue box across the kitchen island. Saw it and thought of you. Thank you. I didn't open it. You're not going to look at it? I'll look at it later. He didn't say anything. Just stood there with his hands in his pockets, watching me chop vegetables for a salad I didn't want to eat. The third time, he caught me before I could escape. Cornered me in the walk-in closet, his arms boxing me in against the shelves of shoes I never wore. Okay, he said. What's going on? Nothing's going on. You've turned down 2 necklaces, a bracelet, and a pair of earrings in the last week. You haven't complained about my schedule once. You haven't asked me to pick up dessert. You haven't. He stopped. Swallowed. You haven't said you love me in 4 days. That's not true. It is true. I've been counting. I looked away. My reflection in the mirror behind him looked pale and tired. There's a gala on Friday, he said, softer now. Everyone's bringing their wives. You're coming with me, and you need something new to wear. Around your neck, on your wrist, in your ears, whatever you want. Just pick something. Please. I said fine. The gala was at a hotel in Manhattan, the kind of place where the chandeliers cost more than most people's houses. Women in gowns that brushed the floor, men in tuxedos with cufflinks that probably cost more than my first car. Champagne towers and string quartets and the low hum of deals being made in every corner. Vito stuck to me like glue for the first hour. His hand was always on my back, my waist, my arm. He introduced me to everyone the same way. My wife, Elena. Not my wife, Elena, like she was an accessory. My wife, Elena, like she was the most important person in the room, and everyone else was just lucky to be breathing the same air. A woman in a red dress slid up to her hip, wobbled over on 12-centimeter heels. Blonde. Tan. Mid-30s. The kind of woman who'd never had to pay for her own drink in her life. Mr. Colobo. She held out her hand. I've been dying to meet you. I've heard so much about your new venture. I have a proposal I think you'll be very interested in. Maybe we could discuss it over a drink? Somewhere more private. Her eyes swept over him, not his face. Down his chest, down his arms, like she was shopping. Vito didn't miss a beat. Sorry. My wife's not feeling well. I need to stay close. Unless you'd like to join us? The woman's smile flickered. Of course. Another time, perhaps. She retreated. The old me, the me from a week ago, would have grabbed his arm and said absolutely not. Would have glared at the woman until she slunk away. Would have made sure everyone in that room knew exactly who Vito Colobo belonged to. But the new me just smiled that trained smile and said, go ahead. I want some dessert anyway. I'll be fine. I turned and walked away before he could answer. Not a backward glance. I ate 2 slices of cake, a chocolate mousse thing and a lemon tart, and drank half a glass of champagne. The sugar hit my bloodstream. The champagne warmed my chest. For a few minutes, I almost felt normal. When the heat got to be too much, the crush of bodies, the roar of voices, the press of silk and perfume, I ducked out to the terrace with the rest of my champagne. The cold air hit my face like a slap. I leaned against the stone railing and looked up at the sky, searching for stars that weren't there. Elena. I nearly choked. Sergio Martelli was standing at the other end of the terrace, a glass of scotch in his hand, an easy smile on his face, white suit, perfect hair, looking like he'd just stepped out of a magazine. Sergio. I hadn't seen him in, what, 3 years? 4? When did you get back? Last week. I was going to call you. I didn't want to interrupt. He walked over and leaned against the railing next to me. You look beautiful, by the way. Marriage agrees with you. Thanks. I didn't know what else to say. He'd been the front runner once. Before Vito, our families had done business together for years. Everyone assumed we'd end up together. The Martelli boy and the Ross girl. It would have been neat, tidy, good for the bottom line. But he'd gone abroad for 2 years, and when he came back, I was already Mrs. Vito Colobo. He'd sent a nice gift. A crystal vase. I'd sent a thank you note. We hadn't spoken since. It's good to see you, I said. And I meant it. He'd never been unkind to me. You look the same. You look different. He tilted his head, studying me. Better different. Like you're not holding something back anymore. Before I could answer, a gust of wind blew my hair across my face. I tucked it behind my ear. So, Sergio said, I still like you. I blinked. I know about your agreement, he said quietly. Everyone knows. For years, right? That's why I came back. I wanted to be here when it ended. He set down his scotch and turned to face me fully. Elena, I'd still like to marry you, if you'll have me. He was serious, but his eyes were missing something. Something I'd learned from Vito, from 4 years of being loved by a man who'd burned down the world for me, even if that love came with strings attached. Love isn't you'd be convenient. Love isn't good for business. Love is carrying burn cream in your pocket 6 weeks after a minor injury because you never want to see your wife hurt again. Love is lying about a cat to impress your friends because you're too proud to admit you're terrified of losing her. Sergio didn't love me. He loved the idea of me. No, I said. You wouldn't. You like the idea of me. The well-trained, obedient, convenient version. But that's not who I am anymore. Sergio stared at me. You really have changed, he said. Not an accusation. Just an observation. Yeah. I smiled. A real smile, not the trained one. So you don't want this. But you can still toast to me. I've grown a lot. He smiled then, a real one of his own. Raised his glass. To Elena then. May she always surprise us. He clinked my glass. Before either of us could drink, a hand shot in from nowhere and snatched my champagne away. My wife's had enough. Vito materialized between us like a thundercloud. His jaw was tight. His eyes were hard. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Sergio like Sergio was a problem he hadn't anticipated, a variable he hadn't accounted for. Sergio Martelli. Vito's voice was pleasant. Dangerously pleasant. Long time. You came to our wedding, didn't you? Very generous gift. An entire place setting, if I remember correctly. He raised my champagne glass, my glass, in a mock toast, then downed the whole thing in one swallow. I'll drink this for her. You don't mind. He set the empty glass on the railing. Elena and I have somewhere to be. But if you ever tie the knot, send us an invitation. We'll send something nice. A toaster, maybe. He had his hand on my lower back, steering me away before I could get a word out. Where are we going? I asked, stumbling a little in my heels. Home. What about the gala? Fuck the gala. The car ride back to the house was silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence, the kind that sits between two people who have too much to say and no idea how to say it. Vito drove with both hands on the wheel, 10 and 2, his knuckles white. He didn't look at me, didn't reach for my hand, didn't turn on the radio or make a stupid joke or try to fill the space between us with noise. He just drove. I watched the city lights blur past the window. The reflection slid across the glass like liquid gold. People were still out, couples holding hands, groups of friends laughing outside bars, a man walking his dog in a puffy vest. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. I wondered what that felt like. Not having to guess whether your husband loved you or just loved owning you. Not having to wonder if every kind word was a strategy, every gentle touch a manipulation. Not having to check the terms of your own marriage in a lawyer's office like you were reading the fine print on a lease. We pulled into the garage. Vito killed the engine. Sat there for a moment with his hands still on the wheel. You were out there for 20 minutes, he said, voice flat. With him. I was having conversation. A conversation. With Sergio Martelli. The guy everyone thought you were going to marry before I came along. That was a long time ago. Was it? He finally turned to look at me. His eyes were dark. Unreadable. But underneath that something flickered. Something raw. I heard what he said to you. I'd still like to marry you. He quoted it back to me, word for word. His voice cracked on Mary. And you didn't say no. I did say no. Eventually. Eventually. He laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Jesus Christ, Elena. You're killing me. He got out of the car, slammed the door, walked into the house, without waiting for me. By the time I made it inside, he was already in the bedroom. I followed, leaned against the doorframe, watched him pace. He'd taken off his jacket. His bow tie was undone, hanging loose around his neck. The top buttons of his shirt were open, revealing the hollow of his throat and the edge of his collarbone. His hair was messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. So, he said, not looking at me, are you going to tell me what's going on? Or are you just going to keep acting like I'm a stranger who happens to sleep in your bed? Nothing's going on. Bullshit. Excuse me? You heard me. He stopped pacing, turned to face me. Bullshit. Something's been wrong for days. You're quiet. You're distant. You wouldn't touch my new phone, you who always steal my stuff to put stickers on it. You turned down jewelry. You said fine when I told you I was going out. You never say fine. You say fine like it's a curse word. I crossed my arms over my chest. Maybe I'm just tired. Of what? Of me? The question hung in the air between us. I didn't answer. He made a sound, a small, wounded sound, and turned away. Pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. I don't know what I did, he said. His voice was thick. I don't know what I did wrong. But whatever it is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Elena. Just tell me how to fix it. And that's when I almost cracked, because he sounded genuine. He sounded like a man who was truly, genuinely terrified of losing his wife. But I'd heard him in that restaurant. I'd heard him say, keep it quiet. So I didn't crack. I'm going to take a shower, I said. You should get some sleep. I walked past him into the bathroom, locked the door, leaned against it until I heard him walk away. I stayed in the shower until the hot water ran out. Then I stood there for another 5 minutes, shivering under the cold spray, because I didn't want to face what was waiting for me on the other side of the door. The bathroom was full of steam. The mirror was fogged over. I couldn't see my own reflection, and, for some reason, that felt like a blessing. When I finally got out, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, skin pink from the heat, the bedroom was empty. The lights were off. The bed was made. Vito's pillow still had the dent from his head. I heard a noise from the closet. He was in there, sitting on a little bench in front of my shoe shelves. His head was in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. I stood in the doorway and watched him. He didn't look like the Don of one of the most powerful families on the East Coast. He didn't look like the man who'd plotted and schemed to trap me in a 50-year contract. He looked like a kid who'd lost something important and didn't know how to find it. Vito. He looked up. His eyes were red. His face was blotchy. There were tear tracks on his cheeks. Elena. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to see that. I sat down next to him on the bench. Not touching. Just near. What's going on with you? I asked softly. And don't say nothing, because I know you're not fine either. He laughed. A broken little sound. Fair enough. We sat in silence for a minute. 2. The house was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. I'm scared, he said finally. So quiet I almost didn't hear him. Of what? Of you leaving. He swallowed. Of waking up one day, and you're just gone. And I don't know where you went or how to find you, or if you even want to be found. I stared at him. This was not the man from the restaurant. This was not the man who'd calmly explained his strategy over cocktails and cigars. This was someone else entirely. Maybe this was the real Vito, the one underneath all the masks. Or maybe this was just another mask. I couldn't tell anymore. I'm going to bed, I said. You should come too. It's late. I stood up, walked to the bed, got under the covers. He didn't follow. The lights stayed off. The room stayed dark. I lay there with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe on the other side of the room. He didn't come to bed that night. I woke up alone. The other side of the mattress was cold. The pillow still held the shape of his head, but there was no warmth in it. He hadn't slept there at all. I found him on the couch in the living room, still in his rumpled tuxedo pants and his unbuttoned shirt, one arm thrown over his eyes. He was snoring lightly. Not a comfortable sleep. His brow was furrowed. His mouth was tight. His breathing was shallow. I covered him with a blanket, made a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen island with a mug in my hands, and watched the sun come up. When he woke up an hour later, he didn't say anything, just walked past me to the coffee maker, poured himself a cup, leaned against the counter. Last night, he started. Don't. Elena. I said don't. He set down his coffee, walked over to me. He was close enough that I could smell him, coffee and sleep and cedar soap. Look at me, he said. I didn't. Please. His voice broke on the word. I looked up. His eyes were tired. The skin underneath them was dark, like he hadn't slept well in days. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe I hadn't been the only one lying awake at night. I love you, he said. I know you don't believe me right now. I know something's wrong. I know I did something. I just don't know what it is. But I love you. Whatever it is, I love you. And I'm not going to stop. He cupped my face in his hands. His palms were warm, calloused. The hands of a man who'd done things I didn't want to think about. I love you, he said again. And for a moment, just a moment, I almost believed him. But then I remembered the contract. The 50 years. The way he'd laughed with his friends about making me cry. I pulled away. I have plans today, I said. I'll be back later. I walked out before he could answer. I didn't expect him to come home that night. After what happened in the kitchen, after I'd pulled away from him, after I'd walked out without looking back, I figured he'd go to Luca's. Or one of his other safe houses. Or anywhere that wasn't here. But I heard the front door open at 2 in the morning. I was already in bed, lights off, pretending to sleep. The footsteps in the hall were unsteady. He was drunk, not sloppy drunk, but loose-limbed drunk, the kind of drunk that made him clumsy with his keys and soft with his guard. The bedroom door opened. Closed. He stood there for a long moment. I could feel him looking at me. Then the mattress dipped under his weight. His arms wrapped around me from behind, pulling me close against his chest. His face buried itself in my hair. And then he was crying. Not the silent tears from the closet. Not the controlled. I'm fine kind of crying. Actual, full body. Can't catch his breath sobbing. His shoulders shook. His arms tightened around me like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. Hot tears dripped onto my neck, into my hair, down my collarbone. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could feel it through the mattress. Sorry, he whispered. His voice was wrecked, raw and broken, like he'd been screaming. Sorry I woke you. I didn't know where else to go. It's okay. I don't know why I said that. It wasn't okay. None of this was okay. But the words came out anyway, automatic like a reflex. He went still. The crying stopped. And then the light was on, blinding, searing, and he was hovering over me, his face inches from mine. Okay. His voice cracked. You said okay. That's the first nice thing you've said to me in a week. The first time you haven't sounded like you were talking to a stranger. His mouth came down on mine before I could answer. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It wasn't soft or sweet or asking. It was desperate, hungry and frantic and tasting like whiskey and tears. His teeth scraped my lower lip. His tongue pushed into my mouth like he was trying to memorize the shape of it. I kissed him back. I couldn't help it. For years of loving him had trained my body to respond to his, even when my brain was screaming no. But when his hand slid up my thigh, when I felt the warmth of his palm against my bare skin, I remembered the scratches. The woman on the phone. The 50-year contract he'd signed behind my back. I pushed him away. You taste like a bar, I said. Go shower. No. He came at me again. Harder this time. His hips pressed me into the mattress, his weight pinning me down. I wanted to fight him. I wanted to shove him off and scream at him and throw the truth in his face. I wanted to say, I know what you did. I heard you at the restaurant. I saw the contract. I know about the woman. But I didn't. Because a wife who's about to ask for a divorce doesn't pick fights. She plays nice. She keeps her head down. She waits for the right moment. So I let him kiss me. I let his hands explore my body. I let his mouth trail down my throat. I let him think he was winning. And then he stopped. A tear landed on my cheek. Not mine. His. He was looking down at me, his eyes wet and red, his face twisted with something I couldn't name. Are you leaving me? His voice was barely a whisper. You are, aren't you? You're going to leave. I hesitated. He saw it. Elena. He pushed himself up, off me, sat at the edge of the bed with his back to me. You have no heart. I sat up, pulled the sheet over my chest. I have no heart? What are you? Some kind of two-timing son of a... What two-timing? He spun around. His eyes were wild. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me, Vito. I'm not stupid. I heard you at the restaurant. Little trick. She'll be eating out of my hand. Keep it quiet. I know about the contract. 50 years, Vito, 50 years, behind my back. And I know about her. Who? The woman. The one you're always on the phone with. The one whose scratches you came home with. The one you bought the L brand box for. My voice cracked. I was crying now too. I know, Vito. I know everything. He stared at me. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. It was a cat, he said. A what? A cat. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand. Fumbled with the screen. Shoved it in my face. A video was playing. A fat orange cat, purring in someone's lap. Soft little mews. A contented rumble. The cat, he said. The one you wanted to save. The mangy one from the parking lot. I've been rehabbing it. I was going to use it as leverage, so you wouldn't leave me when the agreement expired. I took the phone from his hands. Scrolled through the videos. Dozens of them. The cat, skinny and scared, hissing at the camera. The cat, a week later, eating from a bowl. The cat, letting someone pet it for the first time. The cat, fat and happy and purring like a motorboat. And one, time-stamped 3 days ago. Vito filming the cat sleeping on a pile of blankets. The cat waking up, taking a swipe at his arm. His indignant yelp cutting off the footage. The scratches were from her, he said. She's aggressive. Not aggressive. Just, she doesn't like cameras. And the phone calls were from the vet. And the rescue lady. And the trainer I hired because she kept attacking my feet. But the box is a cat tree. It's a cat tree, Elena. I bought it because she needs enrichment. That's what the trainer said. Enrichment. I kept scrolling, accidentally backed out of the video app, and ended up in his group chat. Who the hell changed my wife's settings? She doesn't nag me anymore. She doesn't make me check in. She turned down jewelry. Jewelry. Do you understand what that means? My perfectly insufferable, beautiful, demanding wife suddenly got nice. What the hell is that about? Is she sick? Is she planning something? Am I about to get murdered in my sleep? Now, every swinging Richard from here to Sicily is going to be lining up for her. The competition was bad enough before she turned into a saint. Help. She's too popular. That goddamn childhood friend of hers showed up at the gala, Sergio, with the white suit and the stupid perfect hair, and they were on the balcony together for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Luca, you're the one who told me to use the agreement as a pickup line. Said it would make her feel secure. Said it would prove I was serious. Well, now the whole thing's backfired and she's treating me like a roommate and I want a refund. Luca, you have serious issues. Go to therapy. Vito. Speaking of which, my wife just bought me the new Pro Max. 1 terabyte. White. With her name engraved on the back. Oh wait, you don't have a wife. Maybe if you got a new phone and a personality and a face. Luca, I hate you. I hope she leaves you. Vito. See, this is what I mean. You're manifesting. I almost laughed. Almost. But then Vito was scooping me up, phone, cat videos and all, and carrying me out of the bedroom. What are you doing? We're going to see her. The cat. Right now. So you can see I'm not lying. It's the middle of the night. It's 2 a.m. I don't care. I can't sleep. I haven't slept in a week. We're doing this. The cat was at our old apartment. The one we lived in right after we got married, before we moved to the compound. Vito had kept it for business, but apparently, he'd been using it as a secret cat sanctuary for the past month. He unlocked the door, flipped on the light. The place was a cat paradise. Cat trees in every corner. Toys scattered across the floor. A little bed on the couch lined with what looked like one of my old nightgowns. And there, on top of the tallest cat tree, was the orange tabby. But not the scrawny, half-dead creature I'd found in the parking lot. This cat was magnificent. Plump. Shiny. Clean. Both eyes open and bright green. She looked at me, tilted her head, and let out a soft, questioning MRRP. She knows you, Vito said from behind me. His voice was soft now, not panicked. I put your nightgown in her bed. She sleeps on it every night. She knows you're her mom. I walked toward the cat tree, held out my hand. She sniffed my fingers, rubbed her cheek against them, and started to purr. A loud, rumbling, rattling purr that vibrated through her whole body. She's saying she loves you, Vito said. I picked her up, buried my face in her orange fur. She smelled like sunshine and clean laundry and something sweet I could name. You're staying with me, I told her. Your name is Clementine. Clementine Colobo. And you're never leaving. What about me? I looked at Vito over the cat's head. He was standing in the doorway, still in his rumpled tuxedo pants, his face tear-stained and exhausted and hopeful in a way that broke my heart. I love you, I said. You absolute idiot. He crossed the room in 2 strides. Kissed me soft this time. Not desperate. Not demanding. Just grateful. I love you too, he said against my lips. I loved you before the rooftop. I loved you 3 years before that at that restaurant when you ran into me in the hallway. You were wearing a green dress and you'd been crying. You said sorry and I said it's okay, and you looked at me like you'd never heard those words before. And I thought, I want to be the one who says it's okay to her for the rest of her life. I stared at him. I remember that day. I whispered. It was the day my father told me he was remarrying. The day I'd run out of the dinner party and literally run into a stranger in the hallway. You were wearing a gray suit, I said. And you had a glass of whiskey. I spilled it all over your jacket. You did. Ruined it. It was my favorite. I'm sorry. Don't be. He smiled. Best thing that ever happened to me. Clementine meowed between us. Loud. Demanding. She wants attention, Vito said. No. She wants dinner. It's 2 a.m. She's probably starving. One of her bowls is full. She just likes the drama. Like someone else I know. I swatted his chest. He caught my hand and kissed my palm. So, he said, me or the cat? Are you serious? Very serious. I need to know where I stand. I looked down at Clementine. She looked up at me. Purred. Sorry, babe, I said to Vito. It's Clementine. It's always been Clementine. You're joking. Am I? Elena, you can't do this to me. I've been pining for you for 7 years. I changed a legal document behind your back. I'm obsessed with you. And you're choosing a cat. I walked past him, cat in my arms, and headed for the door. Get the car, Vito. We're taking Clementine home. Which home? Ours. The real one. The one where you sleep in my bed, and I steal your blankets, and we fight about whose turn it is to do the dishes. He caught up to me at the elevator, slid his arm around my waist, pulled me close. So we're okay? He asked quietly. We're not okay yet. I leaned into him, anyway, but we're getting there. That's enough for me. The elevator doors opened. Also, I said, stepping inside, I'm sleeping with Clementine tonight. You can have the couch. What? No. Elena. The doors closed on his protests. I smiled.
Moral of the story: before you accuse your emotionally obsessed mafia husband of cheating, maybe confirm whether the scratches are from another woman or from an orange cat named Clementine. Communication could have saved everyone. 3 emotional breakdowns, 1 near divorce, 47 panic texts, and a very confused veterinarian. Also, never underestimate a man who secretly builds an entire cat sanctuary just to keep his wife from leaving him.